Detroit was once a symbol of wealth, national pride, and industrial strength. Today, it carries very different titles: ghost town, crime capital, an example of American urban failure. The city declared bankruptcy, and entire neighborhoods were overrun with abandonment, empty streets, dilapidated factories, homes swallowed by weeds, and a population mired in violence, neglect, and silence. Behind the new stadiums and vibrant murals attempting to revitalize downtown lies another Detroit, a city of evicted families, closed schools, drug users on every corner, and glaring inequality. In this video, you'll understand how Detroit, once the beating heart of America, became a warning to the entire world. Hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps us bring more new stuff your way. 1. The Golden Age. In the early 20th century, Detroit stood out as a symbol of modernity. The city established itself as the birthplace of the American automobile industry. Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler were born there, and together fueled a vibrant economy. In just 5 decades, between 1900 and 1950, the population grew from 280,000 to nearly 1.9 million. People from various parts of the United States and abroad arrived in search of opportunities in the factories, and those who found work lived well. The wages allowed a comfortable life, with a house, a car, and stability. During World War II, the city accelerated its pace even further. It earned the nickname Arsenal of Democracy, thanks to the mass production of tanks, planes, and munitions to support the Allies. Unions were strong, workers' rights were respected, and more than half of the working population was unionized. Prosperity also extended to culture. In 1959, the legendary Motown Records label was born there, bringing a new sound and a distinctive musical identity to the world. Detroit united metal, music, and movement, the embodiment of the American dream in action. 2. The economic decline and the city's bankruptcy. But that industrial dream wouldn't last forever. When the wheels began to fail, the decline was drastic. Starting in the 1960s, the automotive industry faced fierce international competition. Cheaper and more efficient Japanese and European cars took over the market. Furthermore, automation on production lines began to eliminate thousands of jobs. In 1967, one of the most traumatic events in the city's history marked its decline. A clash between police and members of the black community sparked days of revolt. The result: dozens of deaths, hundreds of injuries, and thousands of buildings destroyed. Violence and social tension sparked an exodus. Much of the white and middle-class population moved to the suburbs, a movement known as white flight. With them went the taxes that sustained the city. The effects were devastating. In 1950, 83% of the population was white. 30 years later, that number dropped to 34%. Between 1950 and 2015, more than 1 million people left Detroit. Schools were closed, businesses disappeared, and entire neighborhoods became ghost towns. The final collapse came in 2013, when Detroit became the largest American city to declare bankruptcy. The debt? An estimated $18 billion. With its coffers empty, even the traffic lights stopped working. Basic services collapsed, pensions were cut, and the world turned its eyes to the city that once symbolized the pinnacle of American progress. Detroit, once seen as a symbol of progress, now represents urban bankruptcy. Number 3. Urban abandonment and ghost towns. Entire blocks have been transformed into veritable ghost towns. Houses that were once homes to working-class families now stand empty, with broken windows, boarded-up doors, and roofs on the verge of collapse. Once imposing commercial buildings have become hollow structures, covered in graffiti, overgrown with weeds and the passage of time. In 2014, it was estimated that more than 80,000 properties were vacant or in ruins. Other estimates indicate that, including warehouses, schools, and homes, this number could exceed 150,000 abandoned buildings, practically a third of the city. In some areas, only 1 or 2 inhabited houses remain, surrounded by empty lots and rubble. Traveling through these areas is like entering a post-apocalyptic landscape, similar to those seen in movies. Some landmarks have become symbols of this collapse. The old Michigan Central Station, once a landmark for the city, sat abandoned for decades, its windows open like empty eyes staring into space. The Packard plant, once one of the largest in the world, became a labyrinth of ruins, a meeting place for urban explorers and photographers. This fascination with ruins has even been given a name: ruin porn, an aesthetic obsession with capturing the melancholic beauty of decay. But for those who live there, there's nothing beautiful about it. Abandonment breeds fear, lowers property values, and destroys the sense of community. Empty houses become hiding places for crime, and what was once a vibrant neighborhood is now a place where only the sound of the wind can be heard. Number 4. Housing crisis and homelessness. It seems contradictory, but in a city with so many empty buildings, there's still a shortage of housing, and that's exactly what's happening in Detroit. Even amidst the ruins, the housing crisis has only worsened. On one side, abandoned and deteriorated properties. On the other, entire families left homeless. After the 2008 housing crisis, thousands of people lost their homes. Many couldn't pay their mortgages or even their taxes and ended up being evicted. In 2015, more than 6,000 homes were repossessed due to non-payment. People who had lived in the same place for years were suddenly thrown out onto the streets. Detroit became the poster child for mass evictions in the United States. Furniture on the sidewalks, auction signs on doors, and families trying to find shelter wherever possible. Some have resorted to squatting, where vulnerable people occupy vacant or abandoned properties without authorization, simply to avoid sleeping on the streets. Even though the number of homeless people isn't as visible as in cities like New York or Los Angeles, the data is impressive. In January 2023, more than 1,600 people were homeless in Detroit, many of them families with young children. This number has grown especially during the pandemic. Today, about 60% of renters spend more than 30% of their income on rent. This means that any unforeseen event, such as losing a job or facing a health problem, can be a trigger for homelessness. And this crisis isn't just on the streets. It also hides in overcrowded shelters, in relatives' homes where families are squeezed together, and in invisible but increasingly common situations. 30,000 eviction notices are issued annually. Number 5. Crime and gang activity. With the closure of factories and the emptying of neighborhoods, a new problem took hold in Detroit: the rise of urban violence. The city, once a symbol of development, began to rank among the worst crime rates in the United States. Beginning in the 1970s, violence became a recurring theme, and in the 1980s and 1990s, the situation spiraled out of control. Gangs linked to drug trafficking spread across several areas. One of the most notorious, Young Boys Inc., even recruited teenagers to sell drugs on street corners. Crack cocaine and heroin spread rapidly, fueling territorial disputes and leaving a trail of destruction. In 1991, Detroit recorded 615 homicides, almost 2 per day. At times, these numbers even surpassed those of New York City, which has a much larger population. The violent crime rate was almost 10 times higher than that of the surrounding suburbs. Gunshots at night became part of everyday life. Children learned to throw themselves on the ground before they could even read. Bars on windows became a basic security measure for residents. Behind these alarming numbers lay even deeper problems: unemployment, the collapse of public services, and even corruption within the police force itself. Detroit was even portrayed as a city on the brink of collapse in films like RoboCop. Although violence rates have decreased in recent decades, the stigma still persists. For many, the name Detroit itself is a warning sign, a consequence of a reputation built over years of neglect and fear. Number 6. Historical, racial, and social inequality. When discussing the black population in Detroit, it's impossible to ignore a central fact. Many of the problems that have marked the city's history stem from deep-rooted racial inequality. This long-standing wound has helped shape the present and is still visible in almost every corner of the city. During the heyday of the automobile industry, when Detroit was a symbol of progress and the so-called American dream, not everyone enjoyed the same benefits. The black population, which migrated en masse from the southern United States during the Great Migration, found work in factories, but also faced a hostile and segregated environment. Policies like redlining prevented black families from accessing mortgages to purchase homes in many neighborhoods. The result was that thousands of families were forced into overcrowded areas with few infrastructure, a low quality of life, and scant public investment. Meanwhile, white families migrated to the suburbs, where there were better schools, more security, and a greater range of services. This separation created a chasm within the city itself, a contrast not only geographical but also reflected in all areas of life: access to healthcare, education, transportation, and employment opportunities. 7. Corruption and public mismanagement. Faced with so much neglect, one would at least expect city leaders to fulfill their role. However, what we saw over the decades was precisely the opposite. Cases of nepotism, suspicious contracts, misallocation of resources, and disastrous administrative decisions were recurrent across different administrations. One of the most symbolic episodes was that of former Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick. Young and charismatic, he took office as Detroit's mayor in 2002 with a speech of renewal and hope. However, his administration was marked by one of the biggest political scandals in the city's history. Kilpatrick turned his office into a veritable hub of corruption. He demanded bribes from construction companies, embezzled public funds, and financed a life of luxury with parties and private trips at the public's expense. In 2013, he was convicted of 24 crimes, including extortion, fraud, and conspiracy. The sentence, nearly 30 years in prison. However, he served only 7 years, being released thanks to a presidential pardon. Even so, the impact of his actions on public trust was profound. And that's it for today. I want to know your opinion. Comment below. I hope to see you here again.